Hi guys, I'm Marinda, I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, so I'm kind of sitting here and I am very nervous, which I think is good because I always say if I don't come in nervous, then I'm going to be all full of ego and I don't want to do that. I want to have that connection with God and know that my sponsor just whispered in my ear, speak to the newest person in the room, because I think that is what this is all about, right? And I suppose when I heard the just for today, it kind of made sense because I think my story starts off with that jumping off place. So I remember that when I was 13, I had my first drink. And I remember that when I did, kind of didn't like the taste of it. It tasted really shitty. But what I liked was I felt something, like it took away this kind of discomfort that I had. And in the recesses of my mind, I didn't know it was the alcoholic mind at that stage, I stored that like as a memory, like, oh, something took away this dis-ease that I had. You know, and kind of as life progressed, I suppose, so did my relationship with this substance, because what would happen is whenever I felt, like I remember being in university and I remember being really fearful of not fitting in. I was so scared about dating. I was not the most gracious person socially. I was quite awkward. And then my head would go to, oh, remember, there was this thing that you could do that will take away this. And I kind of started, like, it was so obvious. Every time I went out, my coping to deal with whatever I was sitting with, the discomfort, was to have a drink, right? I kind of managed to go through university and finish, you know, I did my bachelor's, my honors, my master's, and I managed to get through university. I would say it was pretty unmanageable, if you want to call it that. I know that I was dating someone who drank probably the way I did, so that was a perfect fit. And I remember that most weekends, if I talk about normal drinking, I would end up drinking until the point where I would either vomit, excuse if it's too much information, pass out and act kind of disgracefully. And then I would kind of sober up and get on with it. And I managed to kind of have a life like that for quite a while. As this disease does, it progressed. And I can remember that the moments I needed to get rid of this discomfort, if I call it that, I didn't kind of understand that was the disease, grew, and so did my reliance, not just on alcohol, but various other substances grew. It never got less. That was not my journey. It always got more, right? And I kind of couldn't understand that. I just knew that somewhere within me, I knew I had to hide the fact that this relationship was going on. I kind of, I suppose, I don't know if you want to call that denial, but I kind of knew that nobody's going to understand that. I just had people around me kind of saying, hey, I think you have a problem. And I was like, no, I don't have a problem. Like, I don't have a problem. You have a problem. This is very normal. And I would find ways to justify it. I had all those plausible but untrue explanations, which worked for a very long time until they stopped working. And what I kind of realized is the progression was not just in terms of the amounts I drank, it was the type of substances I used, and particularly the types of consequences I was experiencing. They, you know, initially I would think that my drinking and drugging career had very positive consequences because I kind of liked it, and it always felt really good until it didn't, right? And there were these negative consequences that were starting to happen, and for a long while, this is where I went to. I was like, oh, I think I should change. I stayed in that I think I should change for a long time. There was nothing that I really wanted to do, no kind of plan or program that I wanted to follow, because I was not ready to stop it. See, here's the thing. It was very obvious to me that it wasn't very obvious to me. It was very obvious to everybody else that there was an absolute problem. Right? I spent a number of years kind of saying that I have trauma, I have PTSD, I have personality disorder. I would go to all these places and get these diagnoses and I liked it because I could deflect from what the problem really was, right? Until I became quite uncomfortable, and I think I kind of was like, what is the problem though, right? And I found that, at one stage, there were these consequences where I would use substances to go up and substances to come down, and I got that equation badly wrong. And I found myself in hospital, like with an overdose, and my son kind of looking at me going, Mom, like, what are you doing? This was so scary, like being 4 days in ICU, and on the 5th day I used. So I kind of knew at that stage, like something's really not okay. And I still didn't think there was a problem, because here's the thing, if I admitted there was a problem, right, and I had to kind of go, the problem is I'm an alcoholic, my biggest fear was that I had to stop drinking. So I was never going to go there. There was no way I was going to say this is a problem, because then I'd have to stop, right? That was the first thing. And I think my greatest obsession then became when I found myself in my first rehab, like for a treatment center, whatever you want to call it, for 21 days, was to go in there, and I loved that they sold to me this harm reduction model, and I was like, that's really, really good. I can now learn how to drink successfully in a controlled way. I won't drink all the time. I'll drink at this point or that point. And, I loved it. I was like, okay, so I can control this. Right? I wasn't prepared to stop. That was not it. I was quite happy to do the stuff I was doing in moderation, right? So of course I stayed there. I was not comfortable after a few days, and I left the facility and relapsed, right? And I then started this massive fight with my family. I didn't go in there with any willingness. I didn't go in there with any kind of willingness to actually change the picture. That wasn't there. And it kind of went on, and I think as we do, I would draw people into my life that would support this habit. I was not going to associate with people who were telling me that it was not okay. So all the good friends who were saying to me, there's a problem, I was like, you're out. My family, there's massive problem, Marinda, you're out. I burnt those bridges with people, and the people I surrounded myself with people going, there isn't a problem, come, let's go out and use. Like, I loved those people. But the point is that if I'm going to surround myself, my disease then gets that much stronger, was my experience. Found myself in another treatment center, and I stayed there for 28 days. And I came out of that treatment center, and there was, I would like to say, like a little bit of kind of wanting to change, some tad of willingness, but I don't know if tads of willingness actually work, but that was there. And I decided, like, okay, so we're going to do this, and I'm going to stop that, but I'm not going to stop that. I'm not really going to join the 12 steps. I'm going to kind of do this. So there was Marinda's program. Like, I developed a really good program around how I'm going to do this. And I got hired by that treatment center as their psychologist on discharge. In my absolute madness. So I got discharged on a Friday. I went back as the psychologist on the Monday. And I was all gung-ho, and I think that lasted 3 months. And then I started using. And I started lying and cheating and manipulating and stealing, like I think everybody does. And I remember using in the treatment center. I mean, there's the psychologist using in the treatment center. No connection to how it may impact on my ability to work. That didn't even cross my mind. Or that there's patients there trying to get off substances, right? Like, who cares? And I would manage to manipulate all the drug tests because it was so obvious that I was using. And they didn't know what to do because everything came out negative. I was really good at that. Won't tell you what I did, but yeah. But I was really good at that, and I did that for quite a while. But like I say, things get worse, right? The progression is worse. And it kind of became worse because after a while, listen, I couldn't even function, and I packed a bag and I went missing, and it was just all chaotic. And my family was there, and they were like, okay, like, listen, clearly you're not going to have the capacity to work. What would you like to do? So I was like, okay, I've got this really good plan. You support me for a while, and I will study. And they went, okay. I think at this stage they were just like, okay, you know what, let's just do this with her. So I could spend hours alone studying and just using the whole day, because they would give me an amount of money. I would use that to buy the substances and, you know, whatever I needed, and I would use, and I did this for a very long time until it all fell apart, because, guys, it's always going to fall apart. That brings me to the jumping off place, where I sat there and I was like, you know that moment when you look at, I can't stop using, but I don't want to use? I kind of reached that. It was very lonely, it was very painful, it was very terrifying, and how the whole thing happened doesn't really matter, but I was at that place. Still didn't kind of understand what I needed to do, but I did ask for help. And by the grace of God, I phoned a friend and I said to him, please help me, I'm going to come to your farm, your mom's a doctor, I can just detox on the farm and get well with some time out. And he went, hey, Brew, no. And I was like, what do you mean no? Like, we're childhood friends. And he goes, you're really bad. And I, in that moment, kind of went, but you're really bad. He goes, no, you're worse than I am. And in that moment, I kind of was like, okay, if I'm worse than he is, then I'm bad. Because I thought he was really bad. Because we would use together, right? But he actually wasn't, right? And he said, but I know someone who can help you. It's my cousin, and he went somewhere, and I don't know what this place is about, but it worked. And so this person arrives and says, hey, listen, do you want to come to a meeting? And I didn't really want to go to the meeting, let me not lie, but my parents went, yes, you're going to this meeting. So we all went. It was the worst thing I could ever remember, sitting there with my mom and dad, and I'm sitting there, and they go, like, are there any newcomers? And I put up a hand, and they all start clapping, right? And I thought, okay, but it was a funny feeling. I kind of felt safe, like it was very lonely up to the point, so I remember that. And then they go, would you like to introduce yourself? Now, I was so high at that meeting that I apparently shared, right? And I remember someone years later, I think I celebrated my first milestone, and this person came up to me and said, so glad you got better, because I remember seeing you at your first meeting, and you shared like a whole step 5, and I was like, what did I say? He said, oh, it was so tragic, and I don't even know that I did that, right? With my parents sitting there, like I shudder. I wish that was recorded, because I'd love to think, I don't know what I said. But I just remember then kind of leaving and going back to use. I couldn't wait for the meeting to end. It was really uncomfortable. But I remember people being nice, and I remember people being loving. And that stuck with me, right? Anyway, I got home, and this guy goes, hey, I know this place. Do you want to go there? It's very different. My dad caught into the word, it's very different. He goes, hey, listen, we have to do something very different. These conventional treatment centers are not working. So what is this very different? Like, I at that point had switched off. But my dad kind of went, okay, this makes sense. Because you know what? She's not all those other psychiatric labels. I'm telling you that she's not that. So anyway, I didn't know this place was the house on the hill. And I just at that point went, yeah, let's go. So I packed a bag, and I remember experiencing that lack of the power of choice. Do you know what I mean? Where I didn't have a choice. I kind of understood that I can't use substances anymore. And I learned it because I'm packing to go to a treatment center. My family is in a mess. My son has moved out and has been looked after by other people. I wasn't even interested in even talking to him at this point. Couldn't be bothered, right? And I remember the only thing that was in my mind, the obsession was, you need to drink and use more in case you get clean at this treatment center. You've got to do it one last time. And I did. I made them all sit there while I did this, and that was the condition I would go in for help. But I think at that moment was a bit of a step one moment, because I realized how powerless I was, that this thing was controlling me. That was it. The only negative dominant force in my life were the drinks and the drugs, because that just dominated it. I was disconnected from my family. I was disconnected from myself, like spiritually bankrupt. I could see it in that minute. Anyway, so I come into this wonderful treatment center, and it is. And I think that's okay. I can manipulate the system. And maybe I'll just do my treatment and then I'll become their psychologist too. Right? Like that's kind of like, I'm just going to play this game. But then I met the likes of people, who work there, and I think in the first 2 weeks I realized, this is not going to work. This is like, I can't manipulate this system because they're me and I can't play the system, but I can comply. I can be like the really good golden child and I can comply. And I think that I did, and I think the major part that changed for me, I'm going to go so far as saying, well, not the concern groups, like those were brutal, that happened, but was my life story, right? Because I presented a life story that was amazing. It was really good. It was like a novel, right? And I was like, okay, so this is how delusional I was. I couldn't wait to do my life story. There's the problem. Like, I was so excited, and I'm like, I'm ready. And I thought all these people are going to listen, and I started this amazing story. And I remember my counselor at the end of it saying this to me, that's the best life story we've ever had at the Cedars. And I was like, thank you. Sorry, I wasn't meant to treatment center name. But yeah, and I thought, thank you. And she goes, except we know who you are. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Right? And, I got that feedback, which I needed, because that broke me. They went, you're a garden variety and an alcoholic like the rest of us. There's nothing special and different about you. Actually, your selfishness is astonishing. Your parents, my parents were in their 80s, I think, by then, or almost. My mom was going through an Alzheimer's process that was really difficult. Were paying for my treatment. I couldn't afford treatment. They were raising my son, right? I was not working, but I was sprouting all my achievements and successes in my life story. Haven't worked for years, being supported by them. Sitting hold up using, but I was the head of this institution, and I did this, and I won these awards. It was all mad. Right? Because that's where I was at. And I can remember sitting there, and I got this feedback about who I really was, and I think that grounded me in my reality. And something changed. I think it was just a connection to how powerful this disease was, and it was a connection to the fact that the only thing that's going to get me better is honesty at this point. And I remember sitting in front of my counselor going, hey, listen, I've been complying, but tell me what to do. I really want to get better. That was massive for me. And I suppose that's the first part where I kind of understand what this thing called willingness is. The desire came from me to want to change. And so she kind of explained, hey, listen, and I suppose this is the part of the program, I kind of understood the disease a lot better then, like I don't have the power of choice because I love alcohol and drugs so much, I can't use them. I can't use them. They're never going to be a good relationship. See, I understood in that moment I was in like a Stockholm syndrome. Like the substance, the whole alcoholism was my captor, and I developed this relationship with it where I was going. Despite what was happening, I fell in love with you. And obsessively, I'm never going to leave you. And I would negotiate with this thing going, it's never going to take my son away, and then it did. It's never going to take my job away, and then it did. It's never going to take my dad away, I'm his little princess, and it did. And then I was like, but didn't want to leave the captor. I really didn't, right? And I kind of understood if I needed to start this journey, I needed to end that relationship and get out of it. I was like literally falling in love with my kidnapper, and I did. My love affair with my disease was that powerful that no matter how many people were pointing this out to me, I did not want to leave this mad affair that I was having with all of this. And something happened where I kind of went, hey, listen, I think it was the connection primarily to my son, where he sent a letter to me going, Miranda, I'm going to get so emotional, I always do when I say this. You've lost the title of mother. Wow. Sorry. You've lost the title of mother, and I want nothing to do with you. And in that moment, I think I kind of connected to the damage that I'd done to him. For the first time, it wasn't about me. And I'm not going to say that my recovery was about getting my relationship with my son back, because I didn't think that was ever going to happen. For the first 2 years of my recovery, he would not speak to me. He would not meet me. He would not have anything to do with him. And so I remember one evening, it was his birthday, and on the dot of midnight, I said to him, hey, listen, I know that you want nothing to do with me, but literally this was the happiest day of my life. And I sent him a picture of me carrying him when he was born. And he said, you can call me if you want. And I remember phoning my sponsor at an ungodly hour going, he said, call him. She goes, so call him. Right? And he agreed to have a coffee with me. Listen, I just spent an amazing Christmas with him. We message and we talk. It's still a relationship that's developing, but I even know what his favorite food is now. I didn't know that when I was in treatment. Like, we have a relationship, and this whole healing process, like, those are the gifts of recovery. Like, being able to be a mother who shows up for my son, knowing that, yeah, he sent me, I think on my 5-year milestone, he sent me a message saying, I forgive you. And he goes, because I've learned forgiveness from you. Yeah, and so I've had to work very hard. It's been in God's time and in Yasha's time. You know, it's been hard. I want more, but I got to realize the damage I've done. But those are the things that come back, right? Yeah, so I kind of did what they told me to do, and I know that it's kind of this simple for me. I don't know what to do, so you tell me what to do. I'm like a really good sponsor like that, and I do it. I do it, and like, I follow suggestions. It's very seldom that I don't, and it works, because I think my sponsor knows how mad my thinking is. And sometimes I'd phone her and I'd go, so this and this and that, and she goes, the creator of chaos. And I'm like, but that was such a brilliant plan, right? And I kind of need to run my thinking. I don't know how people do it without that, you know, just following the basics of recovery. Like, I have had many challenges in my recovery. I cannot tell you that. I think probably when I look back, the easiest thing was to end the relationship with the substances. The hardest thing was clean and sober, to understand this damn thing still manifests in my thinking and my behavior. And so I need someone to point out those blind spots to me, and I need to still kind of like, I think the basic thing about this program is this. I remember when I was 4 years clean, my mom died, and one of my reservations was I'm never going to be able to get over the death of a family member without using. And I remember phoning my sponsor, and she was like, do you want to use? No, go be of service to your family. And I was. Like, it was amazing to be able to show up as that daughter and sister, and for my son, because this was his grandmom who practically raised him, right? It was so different. Just like the promises say, we will intuitively know how to do things. Like, I did. Like, I was like, oh my God, like, I know how to be this decent person when people are grieving and there's a loss. It was really hard, but I knew I had to up my meetings, sponsor contact, because grief and recovery is like really difficult. There's nothing to numb you. But I remember being able to get through that process because of the fellowship, because of other people who shared their process of grief with me, right? And then I had a relationship that I had that ended around the same time. not very gracefully, and I remember having to just get through that heartbreak, relying on friends. And I suppose the lesson from that really, it was really uncomfortable, and I really wanted to stay in it, like another little Stockholm syndrome. I love those things. Wanted to stay in it, and I kind of today can look at, that was my lesson from God, because I could see how unhealthy I was, number one, and what I don't want in relationships. Like, that was my biggest lesson. I still don't kind of know what I really do want in relationships, but I know what I don't want. And then I was in this job. I did start working at the House on the Hill, and there was, yes, it always manifests like that. And I remember there was a restructuring, and they were like, okay, so you need to go. And I thought my world would fall apart. And again, I had to, and this is where I think I had to kind of put in lots of action and leave the results up to God. And it was uncertain, and it was scary. And literally got up every day, did what I needed to do, and bam, I get this amazing offer from a company in India who's found me. And I go, never been to India, don't speak the language, but this is amazing. And my sponsor's words to me were, okay, take the fear and dump it. And what do you want to do? I said, I want to go in a heartbeat. She goes, then go. I would not have done it without her. I was so scared. And that's what the program has given me, the gift of courage. I could pack 2 suitcases, take a leap of faith, and go across the world. And it has been good. Right? I'm facing another massive change around that kind of stuff. But I just work on the evidence of God, knowing I need to put in the action, and the results will be up to God, right? At the moment, there's a period of uncertainty, but I've been through them before. Look, recovery is never going to not come with challenges, guys, but you learn to deal. I deal with all my feelings of inadequacy that come up all the time, like I'm not worthy and I'm not good enough. I have the courage to kind of face my fears and get on with it. Listen, all this is miraculous for me. I'm like a real scared person. I don't take risks, but today I do. I don't challenge people who set boundaries. Today I do. I can confront. I still hate doing it, but I can do it. Right? There's just been massive transformation from the day I walked into the House on the Hill until today. I think I want to end by just saying this. I'm 9 years clean, 1 day at a time. That's how I've done it. I think I also have learned that the most important thing that I have to do is I've got to put the spiritual life first. Everything else has to come after that. It's hard because who doesn't want kind of lots of material stuff and attachments and distractions, because that's all going to happen. But I keep in those moments kind of going, got to put the spiritual life first, right? I've got to stay spiritually fit. And the other thing I've got to do is what comes with that is service to others. Like, that's the part of the program, you know, I kind of work it like that. Like, service to others is probably the reason that I got clean and stay clean. So I love sponsorship. My sponsees are my world. Like, I love them. They phone me at these times when I need to get out of myself, and that's my pass it on kind of part of the program. So yeah, that's been my journey, and thank you for letting me share part of my journey with you.